Welcome back. Randy Bueller now joined by Eric Froelich. Eric, you get the honor of going first with the new set of decks, and it looks like you're playing a spicy one this week.
Yeah,
Tell me about your deck.
uh, I played two mono blue control decks, and I was pretty close to playing another similar one, a blue white control deck with main deck Rest in Peace and Swords to Plowshares and Stoneforge Mystics. Because I actually expected all three of my opponents to be on blue red Delver with Treasure Cruise. I'm playing David Williams, Luis Scott-Vargas, and Rich Shea,
Okay.
and I would have definitely guessed that at least two of them are on it, if not three. And so I wanted to play a deck that I thought would have a decent game against that, but I also wanted to do broken things because I haven't really got to do that too much. So I kind of wanted to play Yawgmoth's Will and a few draw sevens and play a deck that's also fun. And so, yeah, I basically am playing a deck with that's more or less Grixis control with draw sevens.
Okay.
So there have been some I'm not sure the exact names of the vintage decks themselves. I think it's like Steel City Vault, things like that. It has a lot of similarities to decks like that, and has a lot of similarities to decks that Luis played. I've got Planeswalkers, I've got Draw Sevens, I've got main deck Toxic Deluges because, like I said, I expected this type of deck to happen. A
Multiple
whole bunch of
people
counter
Toxic
spells.
Delusions.
I have 4 Force of Wills, a Misdirection, Flusterstorm, Mental Misstep, and yeah, Tinker for Inkwell Leviathan, and yeah, Welder, Yawgmoth's Will, all the good stuff. So yeah,
So
thought it was going to be a cool deck.
so far
What's
you
up?
read the field correctly. You did in fact run into Blue Red Delver with Treasure Cruise.
Right.
But
I think I was in a great spot both games and just basically needed to avoid an Ancestral for one turn both games and couldn't avoid it in either one. So, it is what it is. Yeah, I think I was in a really good spot game one. He was basically backs against the ropes and had to cast Preordain and to probe and really had to hit counter magic and he hit Treasure
yeah.
Cruise into I guess everything he needed. So
I was just a mental misstep and a time walk and a Delver. That's all.
oh,
The
that's it.
mental misstep for your key and the time walk to actually just kill you the next turn.
Yeah. So
Delver wasn't super relevant, but yeah, he had to stop Vault Key. I mean, you had to top deck a land to kill him on the exact next turn, which I guess you
well,
didn't
any
do.
mana source, which
Any mana source, yeah, of
my
course.
deck has 7 Moxes,
Of
Lotus,
course.
Mana Vault, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring,
Yeah, I count Moxes as lands in this format.
lots of that stuff. But I've Mox Opals too, so lots of
I
Moxes.
didn't know that until the next game, but yes, definitely. All right, so round two, Luis Scott-Vargas versus Chris Pikula. Pretty impactful match up at the top of the standings with Luis tied for first and Chris tied for third. Chris has a Swords to Plowshares in his hand. That raises the odds of him playing his invitational card to much higher.
Yeah. At the very least, I expect Meddling Mages in his sideboard, and
Yeah, it should be, right?
I hope he has the Shards of Alara picture because that art is just great.
He looks Esper Control-ish, right? What is the middle card?
Ah,
Is that a click?
Spellpierce Forcible Swords. That looks like
Oh, it is
cool.
Vendilion click. So this might be the Bomberman list that runs around on the East Coast. No, Blue Skies. Blue Skies is the list that plays the click.
I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I don't know the vintage deck names, but I
I'm
do
just
know a lot of
I'm doing the equivalent of name dropping. Like I've heard them, I met them once, and I'm trying to show off, and I'm probably not doing it correctly.
right. I can just call things like angels and blue skies and stuff like that, but I don't even know what I'm referring to. So we'll just trust your judgment. Or luckily, you can basically say anything, and I'll just be like, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Chris is the guy who actually knows what he's talking about. That's fine.
Yeah, that's true. Louis
All right. Luis is casting Gitaxian Probe, so he gets to see what Chris is up to and try to make sense of that.
Yeah.
Luis, meanwhile, seems to be something. Well, I see tropical, so it's essentially back to the Pyromancer Gush list that he had, more or less. That certainly seems like a great place he could stick in either Dig Through Time or Treasure Cruise.
Yeah, I'm going to go on a limb here and say there are treasure cruises in Luis's deck. You just can't not play that. It's too much value.
You think it's the cruise, not the Dig Through Time, is the right answer in Vintage?
Well, there's no right answer. We're looking at Luis's hand though right now, and I'm guessing it's a Treasure Cruise type deck more than a Dig Through Time type deck. I think Treasure Cruise is probably the more powerful spell. It actually, I mean, they cost the same amount, but it really does cost half as much mana as Dig Through Time. You know, right. All things considered, and your mana really is constrained. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Your mana, it's tough to get a whole lot of mana into play to be able to cast all your spells. we've heard Steve talk about many times why his deck he felt it was favored, the Delver deck, because he has so few lands in it. So 2 mana versus 1 mana is actually not a small difference. And you're gushing, bouncing lands, casting spells that aren't usually free. I mean, they usually cost 1, not expensive, but paying 2 mana on top of your 1 to cast Dig Through Time when you're gushing is not necessarily easy.
All right, well, Luis goes for a Young Pyromancer here on turn 2, and Chris decides he can't let that happen. So Force of Will on the Young Pyromancer, removing that click from the game.
Yeah, that's aggressive when you have Swords of Flesh in your hand. But did he not have the Mox yet? Did he not have a white mana source?
He did not have a white mana source.
Okay. So
Mox is off the top. Yeah, you're right. If he had the ability to plow it, I'm sure he would not have forced it.
Right. I mean, he could be playing around Mental Misstep.
Oh, to be fair, he had a fetch land in play. The tricky bit was he wanted to Thoughtseize.
Right.
And I guess he's got a Confidant in his hand, so he really wanted to go get an Underground Sea rather than a Tundra, so he used the Force of Will. Couldn't rely on the ability to get access to white mana.
Yeah, it makes sense, and he's pretty far away from being able to cast Vendilion Click before he drew that Mock, so.
Right. What is the middle card in Chris's hand?
It looks like Spirit of the Labyrinth to me. 3/1. You can't
Wow. It is Spirit of the Labyrinth. That's awesome.
So, Chris's control deck, I guess, not playing too many ways to draw cards. Interesting.
We saw the Nihil Spell Bombs in your list, which seemed great in a week where we think everyone's going to experiment with Treasure Cruise.
I drew a Nihil Spellbomb the turn after he cast Treasure Cruise both games.
I'm aware. I'm just saying.
Well,
it made sense.
The second game was right after. Like, it was off the top. There was a Nihil Spellbomb. I'm like, okay, great. Or whatever it was. Or it was off the preordain. I'm like, okay, I don't need this anymore. I can go on the bottom. I'm already dead.
Ah, got it. Yeah, we only saw the first one, not the second one.
This is the first appearance of Dark Confidant in someone's hand. We've just had him playing matches the previous 6 weeks.
Yeah, I keep thinking Bob's going to show up with Dark Confidants in his deck.
I was very surprised he didn't the first set of leaks.
Yeah. Well, he showed up with Oath. I mean, he's been working his way through the signature decks of his career, right? In the Oath deck he won the Pro Tour with, had the sort of Metalwork or Tinker deck that he almost won Worlds with.
Player of the Year. That is true. Oh, no, I was wrong. There's the Dig.
Yeah, Josh was saying he thinks Dig is just a better card. I was defending Treasure Cruise in the sort of Delverish lists. I definitely think in the context of a Delver deck or a Fish deck that Treasure Cruise is probably the better choice.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure which is the better card. I mean, I got home after midnight last night and didn't get to test at all. But yeah, I mean, I'm really not sure. Like, the density of card quality in Vintage is so high that, in Standard, being able to take 2 of your 7 is insane because, you don't want all that excess land. You need to find, in one deck you need to find the burn spells. In the deck that we play in the Pro Tour, you need to find the combo pieces. Where 3 cards is nice, but it's no 2 out of 7. And in Vintage, your cards are so powerful, and there's so many restricted cards, and there's so much, I guess, overlap because sometimes you're looking for just more card draw, of which case, gosh, Ancestral, Treasure Cruise, they're all going to do similar things. And you're looking for tutors, which you have a bunch of tutors. And, it
gushes into a library. Pretty nice. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. I like Treasure Cruise more if I'm playing Library of Alexandria, though. Luce is probably just playing both. He's the type.
It's hard to pass a lot of value.
Oh, yeah. Library of Alexandria is pretty insane against control decks, but yeah, Chris is Bob flooded, and Luis has no way to kill Bob in his hand. He has no idea what he's playing.
Spirit of the Labyrinth and Luis instantaneously. None of that. Force of Will and my only blue card in a heartbeat. All right, now what does Luis have going on? He can Yawgmoth's Will here. I can't see everything that's in his graveyard.
Looks like Gataxian Probe, Demonic Tutor, Dig Through Time, Gush, Preordained, Force of Will.
So not the sexiest.
A lot of hits. A lot of hits, a lot of misses. No real way to get more mana. I mean, a fast bomb would be insane.
Right.
Chris's hand would look a lot better if he had Force of Will click and was able to swords that Pyromaster.
That is true. He's just going to keep... Oh, no, he's not going to keep playing Dark Confidants. He's going to DT, which Luis is going to think about just long enough to pretend he has Counter Magic in his hand. And then he has to let it resolve.
All right, so he's just going to go get the Force of Will.
Chris feels like he's got this game. He just needs to ice the current board state.
Yeah, his hand is great.
His hand is great. He's got... I mean, that's a Spell Pierce, right?
Yeah.
He's got the ability to... Well, Pierce probably not going to counter anything, but he can counter something big. Force of Will can defend it. Oh, now the click as well.
Yeah, Spell Pierce doesn't necessarily need to counter anything if it's stopping Luis from doing anything huge, which, his only spell in hand that has any, impact is the Yawgmoth Will.
Oh, jeez.
Great, but...
Fire both your Dark Confidants.
This is actually going to be kind of insane because he can Yawgmoth Will it back.
Chris has to stop this from happening. I think... Wow, this is such cheating.
It is a reasonable option.
And now the Yawgmoth Will resolves, and Fire's going to work out anyway because Chris no longer has a Force of Will. Luis is going to Gush first.
Floating already down to 5 life. Really wanted to see a Black Lotus. Black Lotus is insane right now.
Right. Yeah, the mana is actually tight enough that Spell Pierce is at least a little bit relevant.
Yeah, for sure. He's going to have to cast Mana Crypt if he wants to really do anything exciting. And Mana Crypt is
scary.
Not going to be a 5 life.
No, he's 2 flips from dead. Would you play the Mana Crypt here if you're Luis? Would you just Yawgmoth Will planning to go? Well, is there a land in his graveyard?
Well,
doesn't matter.
He has to play Underground Sea to cast Yawgmoth Will, so
he's got a black floating. There's 2 mana floating underneath his portrait.
Right, but he didn't have any black mana in play. But when he started the turn, so he couldn't play a land off Yawgmoth Will, no matter what. He had to play Underground Sea first, unless he hit like Black Lotus or a Mox Jet, which would have been really good draws, or even Lotus Petal.
All right, so he does go for the Yawgmoth Will, and Chris is just going to be as disruptive as he possibly can. He's going to use Spell Pierce just to drain 2 mana from Luis. I believe Luis has a red mana left floating. I can't see under his portrait, but he should still have 1. Oh, it's a blue.
Well, does Luis have the wrong color floating to be able to cast Fire?
That's insane. If it's a blue mana, that's the wrong color.
He could cast Dig Through Time, trying to find Black Lotus.
Did he previously have a blue and a red? Like, did he just not float a red there?
I'm not sure.
Or did, like, Spell Pierce auto-pay shenanigans mess him up?
Entirely possible. His picture bubble is right on top of our mana.
Yeah, I couldn't see what color he had floating. Now it's 2 blue floating. The ruby... Well, I don't know if he was supposed to have the red from before, but the ruby certainly gives him the ability to cast Fire out of his yard, which is kind of gigantic here. Though, of course, he did have to risk playing that Mana Crypt in order to get to this position. Down to 1 blue floating. No reason not to preordain. Fast Bond in his hand, which he's got so little life left that it's not super relevant.
It's still
a lot of lands in his hand right now.
Fast Bond would be pretty good here. Not a lot of reach from an Esper control list, so you can pretty safely go down to 1, except he has Mana Crypt to play.
Right. The second land you put into play means the first Mana Crypt flip kills you, not the second.
Yeah, I don't know how many ways he has in his deck to get rid of his own Mana Crypt.
I mean, it's probably a Tinker. And not, I mean, I would assume
he could have something like Repeal or Hercules.
Yeah, he could. That's fair. Luis has had Repeals in most of his lists so far.
Has he? The card is,
yeah. Some people like it. Luis seems to be one of the guys who likes Repeal.
Yeah. It is nice insurance when you have Mana Crypt. They do go well together.
All right, yeah, Chris is, of course, going to play another Dark Confidant. Is that explosives on 0?
Yeah, I'm sure Luis wouldn't mind him popping it. All right.
Wow, he does.
Interesting.
Really, kills his own crypt to drop him down to just library. It's an active
Wow, that's
library,
aggressive.
right?
You're facing a library, like.
Wow.
Now I feel like Luis is way ahead.
What just happened?
That's crazy.
You can also do that after the coin flip, right? You do that in his draw phase.
You can. It gives Luis access to the red mana, which, I mean, we know he has Volcanics from the Gush. If he doesn't have Lightning Bolt, he's in a real bad spot because he's not going to have a second mana to be able to use Library. I don't know. I don't know. It's entirely possible. It was very much correct to do what he did. Wow.
I don't know. I want to see Luis flip Mana Crypts.
Yeah, I mean that was a good win condition in play right now, which
exactly.
I'm not sure how many ways Luis has to even get rid of it.
Yeah, I do not like that line from Chris.
Especially
it's not insane. He certainly took away 3 mana, and you drop him down to 1 mana.
Yeah.
But he's got lands in hand. Wow, yeah. I mean, I think Luis had the exact sequence to punish Chris, right? He's got the ability to go land Lightning Bolt and the ability to force a will the click that's about to come down. And now he's just off to the races. Digging through time. Gas. Jace. Luis is going to win this game now, isn't he? What a crazy game. And you think back, way back to that initial Force of Will from Chris. If he just had white mana or trusted his deck to deliver up another colored mana or something.
Yeah,
if he plows that initial Pyromancer instead of forcing it, then we don't even get here.
Yeah, I think that Chris's play there was almost assuredly correct. I don't think you can really just count on drawing the white mana if you do draw the white mana.
Well, but he has a fetch land, so he doesn't have to count on drawing white mana. He has to count on drawing
any color mana, sure. But I'm saying he's in such a good spot if that happens anyway, just being able to cast Dark Confidant. And he's also not aware at the time that he played that spell that Luis is on what appears to be more of a control deck, where the Swords of Plowshare in hand might just be as valuable as the Force of Will anyway. And so it's not really worth that risk of if you draw the mana source, you'd rather just get down Dark Confidant and, be off to the races yourself.
That's a good point.
So it goes both ways. It obviously would have worked out better for him, but I agree with what he did there.
Yeah, I buy it. I mean, it would have worked out better the other way, but I think that doesn't make his play wrong. I think I agree with you that his play was in fact correct.
I mean, he had so
engineered
many
explosives to blow up Luis's.
So yeah. Well, now
that one I think you're gonna have trouble talking me into.
Me too. we're on the same page there. He's got Young Pyromancer, Time Walk, Ancestral, and Force of Will, so this game's just over. Luis just won.
Yep.
Like, almost unbelievably. We couldn't really figure out how many outs he was going to have to be able to win this game.
Oh.
Crazy.
What a crazy game. Is this the third dig through time? Yeah, Chris is seated up. Like, you've got Jace and dig through time. Wow.
That was pretty awesome.
So far this week, we've got 1 vote for Treasure Cruise and 1 vote for Dig Through Time, but Khans is undefeated. Like, no one has won a game without casting a Khans of Tarkir card so far.
Totally true. I am looking at the little window where it should be a hand cam, and I can see Chris sideboarding, and I can see a Planeshift Meddling Mage.
Nice. Awesome.
The key. I mean, that's the most important thing. I mean, Luis has Khans cards, but Meddling Mage has Meddling Mage.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a great point.
And it is a very good card. It is crazy that, both VSL competitors we have who have won invitationals have very much vintage playable cards. Not very many of those. I mean, Kai.
No. There's an invitational card Merfolk, and not really in consideration for either of our fish decks. I don't think.
Yeah.
It could be sacrificing lands to defend our spiders, maybe. Not so much.
Yeah, not the best. Solemn Simulacrum a little bit slow for vintage. It's good, but
Too slow.
just a little bit. I guess Snapcaster is more or less an invitational card. I don't know exactly the full backstory.
It is. Yeah.
Did he actually win the invitational, Tiago? Or is it granted for something else? There was during the time where I didn't play Magic.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's his card, but
it was. Yeah, it was. I think it was the last invitational.
Sure.
And then it took a while to get made or something. But yes. Oh, the Merfolk Invitational card is Rootwater Thief. I'm being asked in chat.
I completely forgot about that one.
Rootwater Thief, yes, Mike Long's Invitational card.
Another excellent, highly playable card.
The big debate there was that, how can you have a Merfolk with human features so much? So Mike Long is not actually the Rootwater Thief. Mike Long is like the guy sitting in a fishing boat while the Merfolk leaps over and steals something from him.
As long as there's thievery involved, it's all good.
Exactly. Now what? Game 2. LSV up a game, trying to stay in first place.
This is a real interesting hand. We could talk about LSV's hand for a while. He's got the quintessential. Everyone's like, library on the draw against control decks is unbeatable. But he doesn't have a single land or colored source.
Keep it. I keep it.
This is where we find out if it's unbeatable, assuming he keeps it. I mean, I don't see him mulliganing library on the draw. So
No, I don't think so. We didn't see Wastelands out of Chris either, did we? I might have the Strip Mine, but probably doesn't have the Wastelands.
I just received a text from Scott-Vargas saying, "LOL, I had no outs to my own mana crypt."
Oh, geez. Actual zero outs?
I don't know if he's exaggerating by one, but this is what
Wow.
it would be great if it actually was just straight zero, not playing Tinker, not playing any Hercles or Rekill effects. Seems hard to believe you'd have no way to kill it in your whole deck, but I could certainly believe I only had one way. We certainly didn't see one in the entire game.
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, he did have he cast multiple dig through times. He would have gotten to cast at least one of those before he'd lost 2 coin flips. I mean, possibly more, depending on how lucky he is.
I don't think
he
didn't draw one the first turn, so he would have had 2 coin flips before he had a dig through time. And the first turn, the one where he cast explosives and used it before Luis got to untap and just cast Lightning Bolt, he certainly couldn't cast dig because he only had library.
Yeah, sure.
It was only land, so if he lost 2 flips, there's no chance he could have won.
Yeah, and plus he both got to fetch land and cast a Force of Will, so it might have been 1 flip.
Even if he had a whole bunch of outs in his deck, he would still need to win a minimum 2 out of 3 flips.
Yeah.
And hope that Chris doesn't draw counter magic, basically.
All right. Well, Luis has a library, and Chris has a bunch of random artifacts.
So Luis did mulligan and still hit the library.
Hilarious. Yeah, library on the draw with 6 cards is still good enough. It's just like library on the play. You play your library and then draw a card.
Yeah, this draw seems like a very good draw step for Chris, with the mental misstep to be able to protect it from Pyroblast. He can take Lightning Bolt if he wants to. Luis is real far away from casting Dig Through Time, although I guess that changes in a heartbeat. Casting Black Lotus. So he's got Vendilion Click, he can protect it from the counter magic, and he's got Caracas, so
oh wow.
Spot.
Is Caracas Vendilion Click a good combo?
I actually don't know. It certainly is in Legacy.
It should be fine, right?
Vintage, it's certainly powerful. Whether it's good enough, if you're spending 4 mana a turn, it's no bargain.
I mean, it must be the deck's plan. You don't just randomly play Caracas.
No, I mean, Caracas is a viable white source of mana that has implications. So, it goes well with clicks, and there's certainly times where it's great and might just win you the game. But I'm not sure against a deck like Luis's, where we've seen Lightning Bolts, Fire and Ices, and he certainly can have Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast type effects. How strong that is?
Here we go.
A lot of mana.
Draw step. Chris is going to run out the Vanillion Click. Luis is going to
Yep,
Pyroblast it, right? And that's not going to work because there's a mental misstep.
Luis will probably draw off library and hope to hit his own mental misstep.
Survey says not that lucky. So Click resolves. This is going to take Luis down to 7 cards. No. It's neutral on cards. It's just going to reduce the power level of the hand. What do you take here if you're Chris?
I don't know. His hand's good. Like, this is a tough spot for Pikula.
Did he take nothing? I think he took nothing.
Yeah, that's not unreasonable. The Lightning Bolt's not doing anything with Caracas already in play. Yeah. Oh, he targeted himself and got rid of Force of Will.
Hilarious.
Force of Will's gone.
Got it.
It's hard to see. We can't really see the triggers on the screen. It's hard to keep up with that stuff. But yeah, he had a Force Will in hand and got rid of it, which is actually kind of surprising too. Force of Will, he has plenty of mana to hard cast.
Yeah, he can hard cast it.
Just do something. It's not great, but maybe just looking for an answer for library. It's going to be very tough to beat library of Alexandria.
Well, I mean, if you're going to race it, it's going to be with a 3-power flyer. I mean, maybe that's the plan here.
Sure, but you're facing down 8 cards, drawing 2 a turn. Like even bouncing with Caracas, I mean, assuming you're taking something every turn from Luis, he's still so likely to keep hitting things that can deal with a click, just because his deck is so full of them. I mean, just so much cheap removal, and Pyroblast will just counter it on the way down, or any of the other counter spells. I'm sure Luis has plenty of.
How does it work where Luis always draws gas and Chris always draws mana? I mean, this game looked close 3 turns ago, and Luis's draws have included Jace, Yawgmoth's Will, Dig Through Time, and a Gitaxian Probe. That's 4 of his last 5 draws. Chris has, over that time, has drawn Land, Mox, Land.
Well, I think Dig Through Time was in his opening hand, and Luis is drawing.
There's a second Dig Through Time now.
Did he already? Oh yeah, sure. That's a bad draw though. To be fair.
I guess.
I mean, again, Luis.
It's better than Mox Ruby.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Chris's draws are horrendous. Of course. I mean, he's got 5 lands, 3 Moxes, and a Lotus.
Wow.
That is pretty awful. And yeah, he cycled a Spell Bomb. It's like the only spell he's cast. Just a click and a misstep. But again, I mean, you're facing a mana light deck, as Gush decks tend to be, and he had turn 1 library.
Yeah.
Drawing 2 cards a turn. It's just
all true.
Like I think Luis's draws have been a little above average based on the fact that he's drawing 2 cards a turn, and Chris's draws.
The part where he got to draw 2 cards a turn started out kind of above average too, but sure.
Chris has had a lot of these matches that his opening hands have been more than fine, and has just not drawn a playable card the entire game, and these have not necessarily even been short games. Yeah, there is variance in Magic, believe it or not. I mean,
Luis has gone into Fate Seal mode with Jace, right? He's looking at the top of Chris's deck to make sure Chris doesn't draw anything too exciting. It's hard to imagine how.
He just brainstormed there, actually. He Fate Sealed the first time to keep it out of click range, so he couldn't just attack and kill it. I believe Chris then attacked him down to 10, and rather than attacking Jace. And I think Luis just brainstormed. I mean, Luis's hand is so stacked right now.
Yep.
I mean, actually, it's not that good, but I mean, when you look at how bad Chris's hand is, it looks a lot better than I guess it is. And, digs are basically tutors. Thought to use Scoop. he is actually just dead, I believe. Lightning Bolt just to the face. He's going to put him at 7 and put another token into play.
Yeah.
It actually puts him at 5 if he casts his Thoughtseize, which I guess Luis might counter, fearing that. I mean, he doesn't know that Chris is holding 2 blanks. And he can also bounce the click and has so much mana that he could replay it, targeting himself to try to hit something.
Sure.
Yeah, pretty academic at this point. And also from 2 turns ago point.
Yeah, these games turned into blowouts for LSV, but they both felt a lot closer than that.
I mean, there's no question that Luis is the luckiest person.
Yeah, Chris is. Yeah, I mean, you take the Yawgmoth Will. That's the correct card, but
Sure.
game is basically over.
Yes. Luis chooses not to cast Lightning Bolt or anything. Fearing
Well, he would be off the library if he did
leave
that.
library on. Although with Jace out,
Yeah, he can get back on it with Jace. You're right. He could have.
his hand now has 4 Force of Wills in it, as usual.
This game was such a blowout. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, things looked decent for Chris when he drew that click and had Misstep to protect it and had Caracas in play. And he hasn't drawn a single spell since. I guess decent is still a stretch. I mean, that library is just going to be so tough to beat. Like, click just really isn't that fast of a clock. I mean, it's strong. It's certainly one of the best things he could be doing at the time he did it, but...
Yeah, versus library, he had a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, versus if it wasn't for the library, he had a shot.
Yeah, for sure. If Luis had a 6-card hand that just didn't have library and it was the same cards, like, with just uncastable dig through time, and, you know... I think Chris
There you go. Luis Scott-Vargas moves to 6-1. Shows up with a Gush Bond list full of dig through time. Never saw Treasure Cruise out of him yet, right? It looks like just dig through here. Rich Shea went Treasure Cruise. Luis goes dig through time. Both of them win. Luis at 6-1 is either first all by himself or Steve Menendian can tie him. Meanwhile, Chris Pikula has been knocked down to 4-3. I believe we now are 2/15 of the way toward the 8-way tie scenario. The 8-way tie scenario involves Chris and Steve Menendian staying above the fray and all of the rest of us being tied at 4 and 5. Still in play. It's only 2 to the 13th now.
Sounds great.
There's something to root for. But yeah, Chris falling to 4-3. I mean, that's kind of good news for you, right? It means you're still tied for third.
You know what? I really don't worry about how other people do. I'm trying to get the best record that I can, and you know, whatever. Let the chips fall where they may. Like,
right.
It's an interesting event because I do hear a lot of people going, "Oh yeah, I really want this person to lose, this one, blah blah blah." Like, yeah, I want to make top 4. I want to have my chance to win the thing, but we're playing in a tournament with a lot of people I respect, a lot of people I'm good friends with, a lot of great Magic players. Where, of course, I want to keep playing Magic. I want to play as many matches as they'll let me play in every tournament, just like everyone else does. But at the same time, like, I'm just looking for good matches and looking for some sweet things to happen, and hopefully it puts me at the top. But you know, if I miss out and I finish 5th because you know someone else made some great deck and went on a sweet run at the end, like that's great. It'll be fun to watch them.
I'll buy that. All right, match number 3 is going to be my match against Josh Eder Layton. So I'm going to get out of here, and we'll bring Luis in. So feel free to quiz Luis on, in fact, how lucky he got in that first game, and
I do every day. Don't worry.
how he put that deck together. I'll let you guys have fun. I am going to go get ready to play. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with match number 3.